This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the fellow who has a hyphen in my name. The hyphen is silent, but I am anything but that. This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley, and I'm with my co-host, Sarah Benton, and we're going to be talking today about Respectonomics, but we're going to take it from another point of view today. Generally speaking, what we've done in the past, Sarah, is to look at Respectonomics and what it means and how it applies to people's lives and corporate and political and community and so on. We've done that, and we will continue to do that. But we've got what I would call a flag out today. And the flag is we need the audience to help us. We need it from 2 points of view. One, of course, is feedback in the normal sense of what people are thinking about how we're bringing the subject to the table. But also we need new ideas, subjects that people want to be reviewed and talked about. But the reason otherwise we need this feedback or this response to the flag waving is the message is incredibly important. Ultimately, we're talking about the dignity, the security of the human being. We're not talking about economics in and of itself, although I find it incredible that as we understand the dignity of the human being better, we also improve the economic outlook and the prospects. But what I want to emphasize today is that if the dignity of the human being is, shall we call it, at risk, then it's actually incumbent on all of us to bring this to the table to see what we can do to, frankly, to put it straight.
Absolutely. Sounds like a great topic today for us to chat about. And exactly right. It would be great if listeners could reach out to us and share what things are challenging them, what they feel would be important, or things that they would like bringing to the forefront for us to discuss as well. So we certainly welcome the engagement.
Yeah. And I think that engagement is a very useful word, because where I think we've gone wrong, I think what I'm finding is when I talk to people, it's almost like you're telling them what they already know, but they've never actually told themselves they know it. It's almost a contradiction. Although I did hear it said recently, it's very hard to discover the obvious. So maybe what we're putting on the table is the obvious, but it isn't in fact, and we need to bring it to the table. And when we talk about engagement, I see so many places today where, and I'll say the employee, but you might say the voter, it could be somebody in the community, it could be a member of some kind of, organization, community, faith, whatever it is. But have you noticed how people do not feel engaged?
Most definitely. And I think, so like you say, whether they recognize it or they don't recognize it, I think it goes across the board in terms of all facets of people's lives, whether it be family, community, the workplace. There is a complete lack of engagement, and it would be imperative to kind of get to the core of why that is.
Well, I think we need to do that, and I think Respectonomics' job is to find out, where did this dignity go? Where is the engagement? Why is it gone? Let's bring it back. I think we can do that.
Yeah, and Respectonomics has the ability to do that.
It does. It has the tools, it has the understanding, and they're very gentle approaches as well. This is not a great big money spending kind of approach. This is literally one human being recognizing the intrinsic value of the other.
And the idea is to provide support across the board in all segments, right?
But here's to me where I think we have a stumbling block. And I'd like your opinion on this, because we talk to a lot of people, you and I do, in our various corridors of life.
Yes.
We make a point of talking to people. We really do. And what I have found is that the people, the masses, if you really want to be a little corny, but the people I talk to, one and all, have the same response. Thank goodness somebody's doing it. I get this over and over again, that it's a problem that needs to be tackled. It's there.
Yes, I think people are either afraid to say something, or there is a fear of, well, I've attempted to say something before, or attempted to provide solutions, or attempted to engage in the process, and it hasn't worked. So they kind of step away from it.
I can attest to that personally. I was involved, let's just say many years ago, and it doesn't really matter. But I just remember one thing. There was a big merger on the table, very, very large one, lots of money
Mhm.
involved, and so on and so on. And I opposed it. And I've never forgotten the answer I was given,
And
which
what was that response?
was, Jeremy, you don't understand.
Ah.
Hello, Miss Put Down. I mean, it was a useless comment. But in fact,
Mhm.
what turns out is I understood very, very well, as it happens. But and I'm not.
Mhm.
This is not meant to be a self-righteous sort of declamation. It's more
Yes.
to the point. What you're saying is that if people have points of view that then get quashed, it doesn't
Mhm.
take long before you stop coming forward with them.
I
It's
mean,
like, sort of, what's the
and in
point?
all honesty, what could have been a different approach? So even if they felt that you didn't understand, there could have been a completely different approach in terms of engaging dialogue and communication as to what your vantage point was into theirs, right?
Well, now I'm going to appeal to the public. Here it goes. We all agree, I believe, that this business of the human dignity, human respect, is one that desperately needs to be restored. I think let's not beat more on that one. Let's agree on
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
The second part to the equation, though, is how do we bring this file forward? Because if I use almost ridiculous math and said 98% of the world says yes, 2% says no, we're okay, Jack, I have
Mhm.
a feeling that that 2% is the upper echelons of political and corporate authority. In other words, this disengagement suits the upper echelon very well. It's a way of distancing themselves from the day to day issues, problems, finances, and whatever, while they continue to benefit either in
Right.
power or in income and wealth and power.
Yes, and when it comes to from the corporate side or the business side, because again, we're not talking about simply large organizations or corporations. We're talking even from the heart of small business owners through to mid-sized companies and up to larger companies. Then that 2%, as you say, they may have different directives or different initiatives. However, if we're able to draw awareness or be able to have the ability to have communication or conversation or dialogue with those individuals and be able to articulate and show what the challenges are. And again, not that we're out to sort of take leadership down. What we're looking to do is to help them fill gaps, bridge gaps, create a better environment. And again, then everybody overall is more successful. And I don't just
Absolutely.
mean from a productivity or a
No,
financial standpoint, right?
no. No, but it's interesting that I mean, first of all, and I'll just go back onto your point. The 2%, well, we just call it the 2%. They have done some remarkably fine work. They have brought organizations, communities to places that were 25 years ago would have been unimaginable. Um, somebody just told me yesterday, he said, look at the New York, if you look at the Wall Street Journal and look at all the list of companies 25 years ago and how many
Mhm.
exist today. The
Mm,
answer is quite a few less.
right,
So,
right.
in other words, corporations have done some really wonderful work, and politicians they've made their mistakes, but they have attempted to bring humanity to a higher level of prosperity and decency and so on. And there's some great sociological movements to prove that. So
There's
that's,
opportunities,
yeah,
really, is what it boils
yeah.
down to,
What
right?
we need to do, I believe, though, is to ask the 98%, to ask the 2% to listen and to hear this message. And the reason they need to hear it isn't because there's some great moral rearmament going on.
Hmm.
Probably it is. But do you know the bigger truth is when we get this right and we appreciate the people that we work with and around, appreciation is a word that actually says you increase the value of. So if
Absolutely.
we're increasing the value of the human capital that is in every organization by definition, if we're increasing the incremental value of that human being, then the entire organization benefits. And
Mhm.
if we want to go one step further, if the organization benefits, so does society. So,
Absolutely. And again, we talked about this on numerous occasions where, for example, if you improve in one area, that's going to trickle out or ripple out to other areas
absolutely.
of each
Right.
individual's life.
I think most of us would agree that when you're talking to that proverbial bureaucracy, government agency, corporation, whatever, you always have that feeling you don't really count. And I have a feeling that that not counting feeling is in fact an expression of employees themselves not feeling counted.
Hmm.
Well, if you depreciate or put down somebody, it doesn't take long before that somebody is putting down other people. And
Right.
if it's the customer we're talking about, or the shareholder, or the supplier, whoever it might be, that is antithetically to good economics.
And here's the challenge in that as well. So, employees, as you mentioned, don't feel valued or what have you. Leadership may feel that they are doing a good job in terms of doing that. So, here's the key: is perception is key. So, whether it's reality or not reality, this is the perception. So, it's an opportunity for Respectonomics to come in and engage it's I really like to think of it as looking for opportunities. There's
Mhm.
opportunities for improvement
Right.
and opportunities to grow.
Well, I think that opportunity to grow is huge because if you look at AI, for example,
Mhm.
and everybody's talking about its ifs, buts, and whens and all that stuff, and I think probably the answer is we don't actually have a clue. But one thing I will tell you that I can almost guarantee you, AI will become a commodity. Just like copper, lead, lumber, and zinc, it will just become commoditized. We
Mhm.
saw an example of that last week when the Chinese said, well, we've got a system that's half the price and does twice as much. What was that? Deep something or other they call it? Deep secrets or something? I don't know what they call it.
Oh, in terms of the TikTok?
No, it wasn't
What are you
TikTok. It
talking
was
about?
another. No, this is another alternative to AI. And
Okay.
what it comes down to is, I mean, I'll give you a very almost absurd example. Many years ago, and it was back in the early 1950s, I think, is when the ballpoint pen came out.
Mm.
And it was invented by the French, and it was called the Baro. And a lot of people went on calling them Baros for years. They
Ah,
were
okay.
ballpoint pens. And the first ballpoint pen that came out retailed for $12.
Oh,
Yeah, which
wow.
and do the translation of what that would be worth today. I'm guessing
Exactly.
$100. I don't know what the number is. But the point of the matter is, you now buy your ballpoint at the convenience store in what, 100 at a go if you want, for
Right.
$25. I mean, they've become chump change. So we have to be very careful about commoditizing. So we
Mhm.
may think we've got the latest bell and whistle and all that, but once it becomes a commodity, then it's in everybody's back door, front door, it's everywhere.
Mm.
The human being can never be commoditized. And we've been commoditizing the human being by stripping away the dignity, taking
Mhm.
away the respect, taking away the authenticity. But every time we push the human being down, and everybody will have their own idea of what that really means to them. So
Yes.
I'm not pontificating on what it means. I'm
Yes. Be
pointing out,
very individual. Yeah.
yeah, it's very individual, and human beings today feel put down. It might be put down by the internet. It could be put down by, a mean set of managers. I mean, it doesn't matter.
There's
That's
so
not
many external factors these days
exactly and
that
very
can impact.
external. But the one thing you cannot do is commoditize the human being. And when you try and do it, all you end up doing is moving from a place of appreciation, we've
Mhm.
discussed that, to a place of depreciation. And depreciation it's on everybody's income statement. It's on your own personal income statement. Your car is worth less today than it was yesterday.
Right.
Everything depreciates over a period of time. And the point of the matter is, when we stop appreciating, we in fact, it's a sort of almost an equation. We end up with depreciating.
Right.
And if we're reducing the value and the purpose, if you will, of the human being, then in actual fact, all we're doing is stealing from ourselves.
Agreed. Agreed. So that's where Respectonomics comes
Yeah.
in terms of aiding in that area.
Yeah.
On
And
that note, can you tell
but
me
Sarah, for the last time,
what's that?
I don't know how to put this into bigger English or bigger statement, but
Okay.
that 2%. And I mean,
Yes.
however you want to, again, it's an individual kind of understanding of what 2% means. Would that 2% please come to the table and look at these opportunities to reset the dignity and the validity of the human being? Please.
Yeah. And I love that word. They're opportunities,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? It's
Absolutely.
we're not looking to take down.
No.
We're looking to assist and support and provide, looking at and assisting you in growing businesses and looking at those opportunities. Really, that's a really positive word, and I really like that vantage point. It's opportunity.
But I think it's true. And when I was looking at the sort of whole business about what happens when you restore the dignity of the human being,
Mhm.
what actually do you get out of it? And I'm just going to put this into very almost prosaic economic terms, but you end up with increased productivity
Yes,
because the
which we've talked
person
about
feel,
before.
yeah, I mean, it's inevitable that if you feel that you can come forward with an idea that you're going to be received well and you're going to be listened to and so on, that's going to enhance productivity. If you look at the world today and you look at deficits and tariffs and all of these things that are floating around, it's all to do with increasing productivity.
Mhm.
That's the central theme. Well,
Yes.
it's kind of goofy to be ignoring the human being.
Yeah.
The human being has more aces up their sleeve to improve productivity than any other mechanic or vector or new machination, whatever it might be. We will do far better when we get the human being productive. And you get the human being productive when you
Right.
engage, your word, when you engage, when you show them the opportunities, when you listen to them, all of these things. I mean, they're incredibly what
Yes.
fundamental.
It's funny because a lot of companies, large or small, will focus on the numbers from a productivity standpoint, which is understandable. That's the whole point of a business is for a business, they're looking to be successful. But I think if you kind of reverse the process and you look at the foundational elements and you ensure that you're feeding or nurturing all of those foundational elements, those are going to automatically channel into increased productivity. And instead of going after just productivity and forgetting about the rest and having a lack of engagement, difficulty with retention, you know, sustainability, governance, which we've talked about
Right.
before. If you're tackling all of those foundational things as you're going along and make those kind of your core values or your compass, which we're going to talk about, um, then those are going to automatically funnel to productivity, but you've got the right base and the right foundation, and then you've got an overall restoration of the
Yeah.
human, right?
It's interesting when you talk about productivity and the sort of the economic spillout, because you're absolutely, in my opinion, you're absolutely right that a lot of organizations literally will look at productivity in relation to earnings per share.
Right.
That's the sort of, what are our earnings going to look like in the next quarter or 6 months or whatever. And when we talk about earnings per share, I think we need to be very careful to understand that earnings per share, who gets to share those earnings?
Mm,
Doesn't just stop at the shareholder. The
right.
earnings are reflected in wages, they're reflected in appreciation. Earnings aren't just a dollar figure.
Hmm.
Earnings,
Programs that are available to
exactly.
employees, support
Yeah,
employees. Yeah.
right. And mentorship, all of those kinds of things. And when you allow that human being to participate in those earnings,
Hmm.
the earnings themselves become an expression of that increased productivity and they start
Hmm.
rising.
Hmm.
It's an
Hmm.
equation. It's almost circular. Can you have a
Yes.
circular equation? No, you can't, can you? No, no. S-
We can
Equations are
create.
linear, aren't they?
Well, we can create one.
Okay,
A
well, we'll have
compass.
one. That's
A
going to,
compass is
well,
circular.
exactly. No, I was just about to bring you onto that because that's your favorite word. Tell
Yeah.
everybody about the compass.
I think when you think, well, if you think about what a compass is, so when you look at a compass, you're looking for direction,
Mhm.
right? You're looking to see one, if you're on the right path or you're headed in the right way, or when you're lost or, you're not sure, quite sure where you are. You're
Mm.
referring back to that compass in terms of to get some direction.
Right.
So with Respectonomics, thinking about kind of the foundation and looking at what the compass is of Respectonomics in terms of what it is that Respectonomics is looking to achieve and how we can go about helping communities, individuals, businesses with, repairing opportunities or providing opportunities to develop and help them get back onto their compass, get back on the right direction, headed in the right direction.
I
In
think
grant,
I think the word you've got there, compass. I even know the Latin origin of it.
of course you do, and you're going to share it.
No, no, I'll hold it back this time.
I don't. Oh dear. Okay.
No, but it does. In fact, it's to do with identifying with a compass. The past part is the suffering, co-suffering, and that's
Mhm.
not a bit of a stretch. But what it
Right.
means is that you draw alongside and you start thinking about where other people are, which is
Hmm.
a brilliant use of the word compass because we want to be drawing alongside other people, number one.
Well, and actually, if you think about it as well, it taps into emotional intelligence. So awareness again, the ability to be self-aware, and then also the ability to be aware of others. So I like that.
Okay, well, I will take you just back one line further. When you have a compass in your hand,
Hmm.
it is of no use unless you look at it.
Correct.
In your
Self-aware.
in your hip pocket, not a good place.
Correct.
Secondly, love it or leave it. You actually have to know where you are.
Hmm.
It's all very
You
well
have
fun.
to know where you are in order to either A, make changes,
Right.
or B, reflect on what you're doing well,
Mhm.
and C, on areas of opportunity where you can improve.
Right on. And what's interesting about compass is it describes a sort of circular thing. Do you remember that thing you had at school with there was a pencil at one end and a pointy thing at the
Oh,
other?
yes.
It's called a
Can't remember what
compass.
they're called.
Yeah.
Yes,
You can make circles with it.
you could.
Yeah. Hmm. And divide
Math books.
lines and all that.
Radius, circumference.
Yes. All right. Okay. Okay. But the issue is in the world of respectonomics, this is a compass that has no boundaries.
Hmm.
And that's a very important point. We're not
Yes.
talking about something that has a limit. This is something that is accretive. It's something that grows. You remember that thing we did at school when you used to have crystals and you watched them grow? Do you remember
Yes.
that thing?
Yeah.
And I don't
Yeah.
know why we did
Science
it,
class. Yes.
copper sulfate or something, whatever
Yeah.
it was. But you had these crystals that were growing. And that kind of growth that you don't really even feed, it just does itself,
Hmm.
is the same with what happens when we accord dignity to another human being. It
We're
becomes a
talking about the
crystal.
collective, right?
It's a crystal that grows on its own.
Everybody has their part.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think it's very important that this word compass, I think that you've come up with, I think is very, very important. I think it describes respectonomics well. And
Mhm.
we're also, you and I are working now on the compass, which is the
Yes.
way in which we correlate body, mind, and soul with the necessities of living, with the things that we need to live or to thrive on, and then to find out what the community, what the business, what the politician, whoever it might be, is doing for us in those particular corridors,
Right.
number one. But number two, what are we doing for them?
Exactly. Again,
Therein
we've
lies the
talked about this before.
reciprocity.
It's
Yeah,
reciprocity,
exactly.
right?
So I
Each
think
one impacts and influences the other.
I really want to emphasize this, and again, I'm talking to the 2%.
Yes.
This 2% needs to believe and to imbibe that, in fact, what we're trying to do is to bring them support that they're entitled to, them
Absolutely.
the affirmation, give them the sense of dignity. I mean, it must be awful to go to work every day and find out that everybody in the elevator doesn't really like you.
Yes. And
That
we
would,
did touched on that last week, right?
yeah,
On our last podcast, we talked about that.
yeah, it's not a nice feeling. So
No.
I think the more that we can have this inter or intra, more technically speaking, intra relationship where people reciprocate to one another, whether it's in dignity, whether it's an opportunity, whether it's in a straightforward, sitting down with somebody and having a chat.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, Respectonomics owes a great deal to the fact that the likes of you and I sat down and had a chat over a cup of coffee somewhere.
Yes. Yeah.
It's very basic. It's very foundational.
And really, we would love to have the opportunity to sit down with that 2%, if
Yeah.
you will.
Yeah.
Actually, anybody, right? Even the 98%, because you're understanding both perspectives, but like you say, we're focused on that 2% because realistically, that 2%, if we're speaking from a business perspective,
Right.
right, it's really leadership where those are the opportunities that we
Right.
can work collaboratively together in identifying what those challenges may be for the leadership team or for the organization, and also identify what the opportunities are and help them work together collaboratively again,
Mhm.
looking at understanding all perspectives and all levels within the organizations in order to help them come up with solutions to improve in those
Right.
areas. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the cause of the day. And I've got one last thing to say about this whole subject.
Yes.
We talked a little about, almost with a not quite a giggle, but we talked about moral rearmament as though this was the thing we should be doing, and I think we probably should. We
Yes.
talked a bit about the economic prosperity and the enhancement that we can create by having human being to human being in a decent sense of accord and relationship. I think
Yes.
we've done that. Let me put one last thought on the table. We live in a world today where we are what I call the canaries in the mine. And each one of us knows that things aren't quite right. We're not
Hmm.
quite sure why they're not right.
Hmm.
We're not sure who's duking it out with who. We're not sure who hates who. We are very aware of levels of anger. We're very aware of levels of contempt. We're
Frustration.
in frustration. We're very aware of all that. And I think probably a lot of us experience it internally and personally as well. So it's not only do you see it out there, but you see it in there as well.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think there's a huge risk that if you look at the economy today, and I'm being very broad brush on the economy,
Yes.
I think it's got some very, very weak foundational props in it. And that if one of those props gets taken away, do you remember when we used to play with dominoes and build little
Yes.
houses with them? And you
Hmm.
took out one domino and the whole thing
Hmm.
tumbling down.
Yeah.
We run that risk. And with that economic risk in prospect, and it could be political as well, by the way, with
Yes.
that risk in prospect, what could be more important than one human being drawing alongside with another?
Now more than ever.
Now more than ever. And we need to get in practice.
Yes. Yes.
We rest our case.
We rest our case.
I thought you might have one more thing to say. You had that look that said, I've got
I
something else.
had that. I think it could be a whole other. I think it could be a whole other segment for us in terms of just kind of one last point is it doesn't matter what size, again, because we were focusing a little bit more on the organization or the company today, that 2%. It doesn't matter whether it's a small business, a medium-sized business, or a large corporation. You're going to find consistent themes or challenges that exist, within all of those lines of business or sizes of business. So we really do implore you to reach out, share what your challenges are. We likely know what some of the consistent themes are, and we're here to work with you for a tailored approach that suits your organization's needs, whether it's 3 employees or 30,000 employees.
We rest our case.
We rest our case.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Jeremy.